Hello, Jim 12 here, 23rd of March 2023, and today's video, which I'm shooting in my caravan, I've called Politics 101 by Dr. Jim. I hope this helps. The motivation for this video has been that I've occasionally had conversations with my children, adult children, who've been asking me about different parties, which way to vote, asking advice on that. And I've found myself thinking a fair bit about politics of late, and I've come up with a model that uses a tray, three-dimensional model. So bear with me. Let's see how we go today. The first part I've entitled simply The Divide Between Left and Right. And I think no matter where you are in the world, the left will be described as socialism and the right will be described as capitalism, as in business initiative, the idea of making money so that you can spread it around and hopefully bring the whole economy up. Socialism is much more focused on state ownership and state control of all major commercial activity. Anyway, so left and right and centre. So let me position left and right and centre on my three-dimensional tray, like so. So you can see left and right and centre. So if we're talking particular names of parties, in Australia you would have the Labour Party here, Australian Labour Party, who would regard themselves as centre left, and you would have the Liberal Nationals over here, the coalition of the Liberal Nationals, and they would regard themselves as centre right. And both those major parties would be pushing for the centre because they believe that's where the majority of the population sit. So if they can get as many centre votes as they can, that's what they believe will mean that they can gain office. I think that's debatable, but that's, I think, how they think. So in Australia you have those parties, the major parties I'm talking about. In the UK you've got the Labour Party on the left again, same name, but it might be spelt differently, and on the right you've got the Conservatives. Sometimes they call themselves Tories, and they sit more or less roughly where the Liberal Nationals do in Australia. If you go to America, you'll have the Democrats on this side on the left, and you'll have the Republicans on this side on the right. Now, what about the smaller parties, sometimes called the minor parties, and let's not forget the independents. Now, you can have independents not aligned to any particular party at all, and you just have to read what they say to determine whether they're right or left, or how far right or how far left they are. If you take the Greens in Australia would definitely see themselves as left of centre, but I think they would like to think that they're quite close to the centre. But from my perspective, which is, I confess, right wing, I think most Greens are very far left with many of their policies. Certainly their green agenda to remove the use of fossil fuels in a very quick space of time, that I think I would definitely put under the category of reasonably far left socialism. And then on the right hand side you have parties such as One Nation, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and Family First, Lyle Shelton in New South Wales, for example, they would be on the right side, the Conservative side, the Liberal National side, but probably further right of the Liberal Nationals, because it would seem to me that the Liberal Nationals have moved very much over towards the centre, hoping to get as many votes as they can, and they have, which is interesting. But it depends. For example, if the major parties are neck and neck in terms of getting the vote, then they would have to rely on having the support of the minor parties and the independents to be able to do anything in government. Otherwise it's a stalemate. So let me now talk about another term, globalism and nationalism. Let me first of all talk about the term nationalism. Sometimes when you hear the word nationalism or extreme nationalist or far right, they're basically socialists who are saying that the far right are far too extreme to be taken seriously. In fact, they're dangerously far right and must be stopped by all manner of means. I think that's a shame to label anybody who is right wing but not near the centre as far right, and therefore disparaging of them. On the left side, you've got the so-called woke agenda, where everybody has to think alike, speak alike, and you can't criticize anybody, or if you do, you then get labelled a racist. So that would be over here on this side, and I would argue that the globalist agenda is definitely left-wing socialist this way here. So you've got to make your choice. Do you want to go further right with your conservative views, or do you want to go further left with your socialist views? And that brings me to my next visual aid. So here we go. I may have to put this down, but we'll see how we go. So this one is communism and fascism. So if I may add this now to my three-dimensional tray. So I need to put this down, I'm sorry, and attach it to my model thus. Here we go. So here you go. So if, for example, you're becoming an extreme socialist, it is argued that if you go far enough left, you end up communist, and then you get the opposite of centre, which is here. And if you go extreme enough right wing, you end up fascist, which is actually very close to communist and hardly distinguishable between communism and fascism, except that they've come from a different origin. The fascist side would be extreme, narrow leadership, one dictator, if you like, in its extreme form. And communism has come from everybody's equal, everybody should get the same wages, everybody should live in the same conditions except for the elite, and that would be communist. And then when you get ultra communist, where's the boundary between fascism and communism? It's hard to say. So if I can complete my three-dimensional tray, let me add totalitarianism and dictatorship. So if you're in that back side of the circle, that's not staying there, go on, then that's what you've got, If you've got communism or fascism, you've got dictatorship or totalitarianism. So if you push too far left and too far right, that's where you'll become. Is that what we want? I don't. I'm actually a huge believer in democracy. I know it's got its flaws, many flaws, but if I can drop democracy into the tray, that would fit, and it's hard to see, I know, but that would fit there. So basically, if you're discussing the left and the right, that's not quite symmetrical. So let me shift democracy and totalitarianism and dictatorship to get them a bit more even. There we go. So you've got democracy, which is behind the left and right divide, and if you go too far, too extreme, you end up with dictatorship or totalitarianism. So I hope my little model has helped. Love your comments, really would. You can dispute me, I would love you to, or maybe one or two of you might compliment me. So all the best. I hope that's been of some help. Bye for now.